Welcome to the new season of Love Thy Number. I am so excited to share stories from people who are loving the gift of their own Enneagram numbers. I'm Danae King. I'm a type 7, and I'm so happy to host this conversation with you.
Good morning, friends, and happy February. All that means to me is that it's almost March. And living here in Atlanta, we have our own groundhog who is named General Beauregard Lee. And our groundhog did not see his shadow, which, according to the legend, means we're going to get an early spring. But I've lived in Georgia long enough to know, the one rule is don't plant your flowers before April 15th, because we can get a freeze up until then, or we might just get snow in March. But anyway, I know that in 2 weeks from yesterday, I do believe, we're going to have an hour more of sunshine. And there's your weather report for this morning. I want to kind of follow up on where I started last week and go back to one more story that I've written. And actually, I didn't write this one too terribly long ago. In case anybody has been blessed to be off the internet for a long time, I will tell you there's been a lot of arguing, name calling, spewing of opinions and things that are said as fact, and then things that are said as fact that aren't fact, and just so much confusion. I'm not telling you anything new. We have been in it. And I've really thought about this, and really in relation to those who consider themselves to be in the healing community. I know it's very hard to keep your personal opinions separated from your business ones. But we all, actually, whether we're in the business or not, have had a lot of things that we might be looking at and going, oh man, I really wish I hadn't said it that way. Or I said things that I ended up really hurting people who might have been clients of mine, who've held a different opinion, or we've lost respect in the community. We might have lost people from wanting to even look at anything we have to say in the future. This has all been a learning curve. Every one of us, me included. I've said things, everybody has said things through life that we wish we hadn't have said. So I wrote a blog that I put up on my website, and I'm going to put a link to it here. This one was called The Accidental Mentor, and how the bottom line to it is we're all influencing somebody in one way or another. Everybody knows that people are watching, even when we think they aren't. So I kind of went into a story mode with the accidental mentor, and shared a story of when I actually was a mentor, even though I didn't start out to be, and thus the title, The Accidental Mentor. But I follow this therapist on Instagram, and I know she won't mind me quoting her because she used her social media to share this. And I thought this was such an important thing for all of us to think about. And so she put up a graphic that said, Happy Black History Month. Engaging in arguments with internet strangers is not activism. Her post was amazing, and I will put a link to her account so you can go look at this if you would like to. I would like to read a little bit from it, but she started out saying, to my social justice-oriented friends, when I first found the anti-racism niche on Instagram many years ago, I spent a lot of time in the mob. I enjoyed watching people get publicly shamed for their ignorant and entitled comments and DMs. I spent a lot of energy shaming my family and friends into following certain accounts. I slid strangers' DMs to them and told them to do better and religiously followed the back and forth drama between accounts to see who was the bad person and who was the good. And then she says, dichotomous thinking much? I'm not going to read all of the rest of it, but towards the end, she says, if you notice that you're currently in that reactive and self-righteous space, I invite you to bring some curiosity to the energy that's keeping you there. More depth work might be indicated. And then she says, taking my social justice learning and activism offline was one of the best choices I've made for myself and my family. I've learned more, healed more, connected more, and made more of a difference in the real world than I ever could have, spending all that time and energy stuck screaming into this void. So again, I will put a link to her. Her name is Kaylee, Kaylee Friedman. And I thought that was, wow, that spoke a lot to me. Because we are all in the business of trying, well, those of us that are in the Enneagram community and any type of transformation, personal development community, we want to share what it is that gives people a path to growth. And we can all get very caught up in our own beliefs. I've been there. My gosh, have I been there? I was on the front line for a long time in a very fundamental religious upbringing, telling people this was the truth. And if you didn't do A, B, and C, it would result in eternal punishment. I'm just, it makes me cringe when I think about the way I decided I had all the truth, and that if somebody did not see it my way, then they were doomed, like eternally doomed. So I wanted to go back again, and this was an episode that happened to me. I think I was in the 6th grade. No, I wrote it in here, so I know I was in the 6th grade. And so in this podcast, I'm kind of doing two things. I'm going back and reading some of my old writings, and then I'm also trying to bring out a conversation about how what we say truly is being watched on a scale that we probably have no idea. I know I've been surprised. I put it in my blog, that again, I'll link to, when people will comment on my Facebook post, and I haven't heard from them in years. And I was like, wow, I had no idea you paid attention to anything I said. People are paying attention. So let me share a little story with you. This one is funny, but it's actually true. So starts out by this. When I was much younger, I was aware of the term defamation of character, which simply means any statement that hurts someone's reputation. Written defamation is called libel, while spoken defamation is called slander. Today, it's simply called free speech via social media. Allow me to share a little story from my time in the 6th grade. For reasons I do not recall, my friend Debbie and I had it out for our homeroom teacher, Mrs. Fincher. Miss Finch was a short, round woman with red hair that she wore in a beehive hairdo. Look it up. It was all the rage in 1968. Debbie decided we should start a petition to get Miss Finch fired. So, being so clever, as 6th graders are, we knew we couldn't tell anyone what we were doing because some of the stupid kids who were always trying to get on the teacher's good side would tell on us and we'd get in trouble. Point of interest, up until that day, I had been one of those stupid kids. I liked knowing the teacher liked me. I had never been in trouble in school. I had never considered a life of crime, but there I was, knee-deep in a plot to overtake the system. Debbie and now I knew something had to be done, so we took matters into our own vigilante hands. There was no Facebook to help lead our charge, so what were two 6th grade girls to do? Being the creative geniuses we were, we told our classmates that we just wanted their autographs. We passed the paper around the room and got everyone's signature. And then, and this was such a brilliant plan, we signed our own names at the very bottom. Only after we had all the signatures did we add the line at the top of the page, petition to have Miss Finch fired. Alas, justice would be served. Only it wasn't served. It was intercepted by our science teacher, Mr. Williams. Our scheme did not go as planned, and suffice it to say, we ended up in the principal's office, which in turn resulted in a phone call to my mom. You can use your imagination to figure out how that scenario was played out, but that wasn't the worst part. After Mr. Williams escorted me and Debbie to the principal's office, the principal then escorted me and Debbie down the hall to Miss Finch's classroom, where, prior to our arrival, we had been instructed to confess our crime and apologize to Miss Finch. To be honest, I do not remember the punishment I received from my parents, so I can only imagine that myself. But what I do remember, what is etched in my memory for all eternity, are the way Miss Finch's eyes began to tear up as she saw what we had done. And then she said something that broke my unknowing little heart. I can forgive, but I'll never forget. I had not considered that I would break her heart. I unknowingly had participated in what today could be a cause for a civil suit. I had slandered Miss Finch. I was guilty of defamation of character. We had publicly shamed her because, in spite of not having access to any type of social media, the word spread across the entire elementary school. As top of the elementary school food chain, we were the ones with the big following. We were sixth graders who held the power of influence over all those young kids. In our little world, we were the Kardashians, and everyone looked to us for guidance. I was a sixth grade influencer. A little exaggeration might be in play here, and perhaps I'm not remembering the true scope of my influence, but you get the picture. Our words either hurt or inspire. Thankfully, our little news faded fast and was quickly replaced by who kissed who on the playground or who got a wedgie. The infamous petition was a distant memory for everyone, except here I sit, 50 years later, with the shame of knowing my words had hurt an innocent woman, and wondering if Miss Finch bore a scar that I had inflicted for the rest of her teaching career. Oh, the end. Y'all, I honestly get choked up when I read that. Not that my writing is that good, but I remember seeing how I had hurt somebody. I had not ever considered the person that Mrs. Finch was, other than my sixth grade homeroom teacher. And I can tell you, as I grew up, as I became a mom, as I became a grandmom, I wondered, did her children find out about this? Well, I figure at some point we were talked about around the Thanksgiving table or dinner table or something, and hopefully they laughed about it. But I still sit here and think, I broke somebody's heart with my words. Now, I've broke many people's hearts and had, like I said, many, many years of not thinking before I spoke. I remember my niece told me a few years ago, of course it was in response to something silly I said. It was actually funny, but the words came out all wrong. But she said, Danae, you might consider letting that entire thought go all the way around your brain before you let it come out of your mouth. Well, we all laughed about that, and she said it out loud in front of all the cousins because it was funny. But she's right. Not about the silly things I say. Those are just going to come out. But when I'm sitting here thinking, is what I'm about to put out on the internet, is what I'm going to share on Facebook or Instagram or send an email to somebody, am I going to hurt them with my words? I know it sounds so trite. My goodness, we learned this growing up. I mean, our moms would say, if you can't say anything good, don't say it at all. Well, I don't think anybody's ever heard that phrase, this past generation. Maybe, I'm not saying everybody of a younger generation has no scruples. They certainly do. And I'm very proud to watch the young people who really do take seriously that they have this platform, that they want to do good and they want to make a difference in the world. I do too. I want to make a difference. But I want to just remind those of us who do work in the transformational space that what we sometimes hold on to as truth, even if it's about, especially in the Enneagram community, making a blanket statement about a type, which most of those in the leadership position that I admire so much would never do that. But we do have an influence. We're young. I was a young influencer, not anywhere near what I thought I was, but like I wrote in the blog that I've told you about, I've had people come up to me and say, you said this thing to me years ago, like maybe 30 years ago, and it stuck with me forever. And it really made a difference in my life. And I'm just floored. I'm floored about that. Because most of the time, it wasn't intentional that I would be sharing words of inspiration 30 years ago. I mean, of course, I want to make a positive influence and impact, but it's the intentionality that I'm focusing on now. I want to be so careful with the words that I put online that are there forever. It's hard to go take things out of cyberspace. And we've watched it play out many, many times with people who thought it was their place to jump on a bandwagon when somebody had been publicly accused of something. And I find that if you're not personally involved with that, then you don't have any right to be jumping on a platform to share your opinion, which is just a general statement that may be tied to your experiences in your past, but have nothing to do with the person who's actually being spoken about. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this podcast up, and thank you for listening to my little reading again. I love sharing these stories, and I hope to hear from you. If you've got a story, if you've got something you've written, and you're like, I would like a place to share my thoughts as well. I would love to be that space. I'm not the Moth. I love that show, The Moth, where you get to hear real stories from people. But if you've got something you'd like to share, let me know. And I'd love to have you. In the meantime, keep growing. Keep asking, what is it I love about my type, my number? And when you really look inside, you're going to find, there's so much to love about who you are. Share your gift with those who are watching.